I work with traditional stained glass, which has been around since, well, for 1,000 years probably. My name's Rachel Mulligan and I make stained glass windows. I've been doing stained glass for over 30 years and it involves cutting individual pieces of mouth blown glass, painting them, maybe doing a bit of engraving, but then at the end leading the pieces together. So it's glass and lead and it's the same way it's been made more or less for about 1,000 years. The making of historic windows in a traditional way was identified as endangered a few years ago, partly because of the difficulty of getting hold of the materials and the cost of glass, but also the training places have shut and the commissions that used to be there in churches and historic buildings are much fewer because of resources. So I made the commitment to only use mouth-blown sheet glass a number of years ago. The glass that used to be made in this country, English antique glass, closed a few years ago, so it isn't manufactured at scale anymore. Mouth-blown sheet glass has a variety of textures. It can have little tiny bubbles and flaws because it's handmade, and these add character and liveliness to the window. And the range of colours you get is far wider than anything that's made by machine, which can be very flat and uninteresting in comparison. So when I begin a commission, I go and visit the site and talk to the patrons and find out what they want in there. There's then quite a long process of designing and drawing, which can take up to 1/3 of the time of the overall commission. That's partly because I'm a slow worker and quite meticulous, and I want my drawings to be fully resolved before I start on the glass. And when I start on the glass, I use mouth-blown sheets of glass, which come ready coloured, and some glass has a thin layer of colour on a clear background, that's called flashed. And I use that in areas where I want to get a difference in colour on one piece. So I use a Dremel type tool to take away some of the colour. And then I look at it in a window, it's all put up with blue tack on a piece of glass so I can see if the colours work together in a harmonious way. And from that, I then start working into the glass to take away some of the flash and then painting it with glass enamels that are fired in a kiln. It can go into the kiln 2 or 3 times to get the right effect of line and tone. And when I've finished the firings, I put it up in the window again, have another look at it, show it to the client, and then I start leading. And the leading is the bit that holds all the separate pieces together. Once the glass is leaded, all the joints are soldered with a soldering iron, and that's what holds it together. And the final part of the process is making it watertight using a black gooey cement mix, which you put on and then clean off. And right at the end, I black up the leads with a black grate polish. The hardest part to learn and to get really confident and proficient in is actually the design work. To come up with a design that is fitting for the building, the architecture, and that takes into account all the light levels and all the wishes of the patron. That's something that comes with time and experience. When students come into my studio, they often comment on the smell, and I think it's a mixture of linseed oil from the putty and perhaps a bit of wood from the building. But every time I come in, I do a deep inhale, and I just like the sense of being here in the studio. Looking at stained glass in situ, there's a great website called Visit Stained Glass that has notable windows and a bit of history about them. And if you do get interested and go and look at windows, I would say take a sketchbook, some coloured pencils or watercolours, and just spend some time looking at one window, but really look at it and sketch it. Once you've sketched it, you'll always remember it, and you learn more doing that than virtually anything else.